It's time that we begin creating some textures for our hair object. So let's take a look at our material editor here. You'll see that I have a hair material with empty hair material. There's nothing in the slots here applied to our hair. Okay, so that because obviously you should know now that Viewport Canvas requires that we have a material applied to the object that we're going to be working on in Viewport Canvas. And so we're going to be making a diffuse color, and it's literally just going to be that, just a color. It's going to be very straightforward. We're going to create a specular level and glossiness maps, and we're going to create an opacity map. Okay, and you'll see what that's all about as we go. So let's get started. Put this away. Let's go into our paint on, pick a map, and pick the diffuse color. We'll do that first. It's going to be the easiest and most straightforward. A nice high res selection here, and save it into our textures folder in our production folder here. And we'll just call it hair diffuse. Dash diffuse. Okay, and we're going to save it as, for right now, as a JPEG. Okay, and then say save, and then say OK, and say OK again. And now we're set. And all we're going to do for right now is we're going to simply go into our color picker, and we're going to make a color that's going to work for us, and we're going to make him a redhead because he's pretty colorful. He's got an a yellow shirt, and blue jeans, and so forth. I figured I'd give him red hair and make him kind of just very colorful as a cartoon character. So we're going to pick a color that is kind of orangey and not too bright, but bright enough. I think a little bit more on the reddish, on the red side though. That's pretty good. That's all the way up there. Maybe a little bit more orange than that. Stronger color. Let's get that pretty much right. That should be pretty good. That'll be a good color. A little touchy. That'll work. Okay. And we're going to do it the easy way to start off with. We're going to use our paint bucket, and we're going to fill it with, and I'm going to make a new layer. No, I'm not. I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, I'm going to use the paint bucket, and I'm going to unclick use for the brush image and for the mask, so that it actually uses the color that we want to use. Okay. So it should use this color, and so when I go here to click there and apply that, there we have it. We have our hair color. Now, one of the things you might notice is there's a little what we call artifacting. There are layers up here in the corner, so we can have those handy. A little artifacting going on here. Let me get my brush tool. And see some of this stuff going on right here? That's going to be a problem somewhat. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into 2D view. And we could have just done this in 2D view in the first place. And I'm just going to use my brush. I'm going to make it a nice hard brush for right now. And maybe zoom in on this a little bit just to make it a little bit better to work with. And I'm going to go around the edges here and make sure that we're really getting everything. One of the nice features in Viewport Canvas is this little button right here, toggle. You can turn on and off this wireframe, which shows your UV coordinates specifically. Okay, so do the same over here. Just want to make sure I'm taking care of any of that stuff. It just doesn't quite happen when you use something as simple and heavy-handed as the paint bucket, so there we go. That should fix it. And if we put this away, now you'll see that you don't see any of that artifacting now. See that? That's good. That's a good thing. All right. So that's it for the diffuse layer. That was the easy one. All right. So let's go ahead and get out of our paint. Okay. And let's go into here and let's choose our opacity. Now we're going to start working on the opacity. That's going to be a little bit more work. We're going to be using our brush tool to create some detail around these areas where it's very jagged and stuff. Don't want to get too crazy with it. He is a cartoon character. We want to keep it fairly simple, but we want to add a little bit more detail just so it looks a little bit more natural. So once again, we want to choose the high-res 2048 or 2K resolution, and we want to save it in here as here opacity. Okay, here opacity. I'm going to save it as a JPEG. All right, let's say OK. Oh, one of the things we want to do first, we want to make sure that this is completely white. It's one of the things that I sometimes forget to do and have to do it later. And you don't want to do it too much later because then you end up having more work to do. But it needs to be completely white because we want this to be completely opaque, and that's what white does, except in the areas where we're making it transparent with the the detail that we're going to paint in black. Black is completely transparent, and white is completely opaque. And the brush is going to be a somewhat soft brush, so it's going to be mostly transparent in the areas that we're painting, except for just a little bit of the edges being semi-transparent. Okay, that's how that's going to work. So that's going to make a difference right there. Okay, so there we are. So now we're starting with a nice white object here to begin working on. The first thing we want to do right away, though, is we want to go into 2D view. All right, let's get our paint, our brush here. Go to 2D view, and right away, this part right here, as you can see as I roll my brush around, you can see inside of it. That's what we're going to end up with. We want to use black, and we want to paint this thing, the inside completely black, because we want that to be completely transparent. Now, what is this part that I'm actually doing? See what's happening here around the edges? Remember, we have an inside and an outside geometry for our hair, because we added a shell modifier to give it a little thickness, and that literally gave us two parts of the geometry for our hair, and not just a flat, one-dimensional sort of plane sort of object. And what this is going to do is make sure that the inside is completely transparent, and we're going to make the outside object here. In fact, we're going to take a look at that right now, just so you can see what I'm talking about and what we really did here. And that's going to allow us, let's do it right now. We're going to take a quick peek at this and make sure, there we go. And let's go into our material editor and make sure that I have on this material, show shaded material in Viewport. There we go. And we can see that it appears to be like it's just nothing more than just a red object here. But let's turn off. Well, let's do this. Let me see. Let's turn off this first. I actually did that earlier, and I'm going to show you what happens if we don't have two-sided on. I'm going to render this, and notice that this is being completely transparent. It's matching the complete black of the background, right? If the background was blue, we'd be seeing blue on the other side. But if I choose two-sided, what it's going to do is it's going to make this diffused area right here two-sided on this outside part of the object, and well, you'll see. It's hard to explain. There we go. Now, let me do this again. Did I check I didn't check two-sided. Let's try that again. There we go. And there you go. Now you can see the inside of this outside part of the shell object that we did. The inside part of the shell is completely transparent, so we don't see it. So we're actually seeing the other side of this outside part. If that makes any sense. If it doesn't, it's okay. Just do what I'm having you do, and hopefully it'll make sense later on. Okay. So that's going to take care of that part. All right. We can get out of here now. We can go back into our opacity and Viewport canvas and start working on creating a some hair detail here. And what we're going to want to do is change the hardness to 0. We're going to change the radius of our brush a little bit. We're going to zoom in a little bit also. so we can see what we're doing a little bit more, and rotate around once again so we can see a little bit better. And also, because this is a round object and we're painting on it, we're going to want to be pretty careful about you know, how we're facing the object, so it makes a little bit more sense. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started on this. And like I said, I'm just going to be painting some rough shapes in here to sort of round this stuff off and add a little bit more detail. So I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to start outside of this and paint straight up like so. And I'm going to let that taper off because I'm using my pen tool on my tablet. I'm able to actually taper that off with the pen pressure. Okay, oops, smooth that out a little bit there, a little bit. Let's rotate this just a little bit more towards me. Let's see if I have a little bit better. Doing that way. There we go, that's better. All right, and so there's that. Now I'm going to round this off. I don't want to add too much detail because it's a cartoon character and we're just trying to make it look more believable. And I think I'm going to work around this direction. I mean, you have to pick a direction to go, so it may as well be this direction, right? Zoom in maybe just a little bit more so I can get a little bit more detail. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to create all the large detail first. It's always a good idea to start with a large detail. And working with the pen tool on a tablet, you know, it takes a little practice. So, you know, if at once you're having, if you're having a little trouble in the beginning, just stick with it and keep practicing. And you'll, I'm having to turn this a little bit because this is actually bent inward a little bit. I need to make sure that I'm facing the direction of the actual there we go, of the actual polygon, you know. And I think I'm gonna add a little bit of a variation inside of here. And then I'm going to go up into here and sort of soften that up a little bit. Come down like this. And let's do a little of that. We'll do a little of that here as well. Get a little bit more of a curve, sort of. And maybe a little variation right here as well. So just a little of that. See, that's all it takes sometimes. Just a little bit of a stroke. And we have a nice little thing going on there. Now this is where it's going to get a little jaggedy here. So let's rotate around. Let's not get impatient. We want to make sure we're always facing the polygons. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble controlling this. So I'm going to create a little thing going like this. And then back down like that. And there we go. See, just these little tiny details. Nothing major. I'm not trying to get too crazy here. I think maybe I'll go in a little bit here. In fact, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go straight down. Now, you may be wondering, you know, how this is going to actually affect the look of this. It's almost like, you know, when we were making the, go up this way a little bit. When we were making the actual hair object, we were just actually modeling it. We were, you know, keeping it fairly simple. We didn't want to get too crazy with the modeling and add too many polygons and everything, right? And so we kept it simple, but it ended up being kind of jaggedy. Well, this is like, you know, simulating the model being different. Because the opacity is literally going to make this look like it's actually shaped this way. And that's the beauty of the opacity. Well, it's like, you know, the leaves on the ferns that we did in the environment project. All right. So there. Now, if I feel after I've done most of this roughing stuff, yeah, see what happens? We get a little bit of stuff going on in the back here. I'm just going to have to go in there and clean that up later on. I'm not going to worry about it right now. And it's because it's two-sided. I'm pretty sure that's the reason why. But that's okay. A little of that, a little of that right there. Do a little back here. Now this is the back, getting towards the back of the head. I'm not going to get too crazy with this. Don't want to make it too complicated. A little bit. And since this is such a square part right here, we can either round this one part off, or we can break it up and turn it into something like that instead. And then do kind of the same thing here, perhaps. That. Okay. We need to break this up just a little bit, so I'm going to make a hair strand like that. Get this a little bit more blending into it. Same thing here. Delicate with that brush. Alright, there we go. Getting there. Done with this in just a few minutes. Now, I'm not expecting your hair to look just exactly like mine. I just want you to understand the concept and be able to make the hair look a little bit more interesting and believable. So, watching this tutorial, you understand the techniques, and you're going to have to practice a little bit, probably, unless you've had a lot of experience with a Wacom tablet and drawing with it. You know, if you have, then this might not be so difficult for you. And I just feel like I need to break this up a little bit right here. It's called artistic license. Don't use too much of that with these projects, though. There's a reason for most of the things that I'm doing. Sometimes we can take a little artistic license, and I'm giving it to you a little bit here. But you don't want to go crazy. If you add too many details, then it's going to start looking goofy. And lose some of the quality of a cartoon character. We don't want to try to get too crazy with the details. What makes a cartoon character work is the lack of detail. So to some degree, I mean, it's good detail, but it's simple detail. I'm going to make a little variation right here. Rotate a little bit more. Smooth that out a little bit. There we go. And we're almost there. I think I'm going to make a little something going this way. All right, I think that's enough. Just rotate around, see how it looks. See, that's going to look a little bit better. So what we're going to do now is take a look at this and see how that detail actually works when we render it. So let's go ahead and get out of here for now. Okay. And we're not going to see the opacity stuff in the viewport. So let's go ahead and render this and see how it's looking so far. See all that extra detail we added? That's going to look pretty great. Okay, so there we go. We got a good start there. Now, the next step finally is that's enough of the opacity match stuff. So the next step is going to be to create a specular level map, and we're going to use it for the glossiness map as well. Okay, so let's go in and go here and go to specular level, and same resolution as all the others. We want to make this beginning color right about there's not bad. That's like middle value. Let's make it more precise though, because middle value is really right around 122. Middle gray is what I mean, 50% gray. And that's what we're after right here for the specular level to start off with, because white will be shiny or more specular, and black will be not specular at all, and everything in between will be more or less specular or not. Let's say okay with that. Let's go ahead and give it a name and save it in here. So we'll call this here specular. Has a JPEG also. Let's say save. Okay. And okay again. Alright. Now, with the specular map, we're going to be mostly using one of our objects here, our custom maps in here that I brought in. And it's the straight hair specular opacity one that I made. And so let's add that. We're going to use that instead of the color here. And so it's going to ignore these colors. And when we paint this on, we're going to use a very large brush. All right. And we will then touch it up a little bit perhaps afterwards if we need to. We want to use a very, very large brush and sort of like stamp it on. We're not even going to be hardly painting, it's going to be more like clicking. So I'm just going to use my mouse. I'm not even going to use my pen tool. It's going to be easier that way. So what we do is we create a really large brush. I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of about 200 for the brush. Okay, and zoom in just a little bit here. So it's fill in the screen almost. And you can see how this brush actually needs to be even bigger than that. I could probably just zoom out just a little bit. It would be just as effective. There we go. And what I want to have happen here, let's rotate this down just a little bit. I want to create this feel with this brush that Yeah, I think I'm going to make it even bigger brush than that. Maybe around 300. See if that's going to be too crazy. I don't know. Maybe not. You want to have that detail. What this is going to do is when the light plays across the surface of this, all those white strands are going to reflect the light. And the dark strands are not going to reflect the light very much or at all. And the idea is that when we, because that's what we notice about hair mostly, other than the actual color of the hair, is how, the fact that the light is reflecting off it. That's where we see certain parts of the hair, the texture of the hair. So I'm going to rotate this so that it's facing us a little bit more. And, yeah, I don't like the position of that. Let me rotate this and get this right. Here we go. There we go. That's going to work out. So what we're going to do is we're going to work our way around this object and let the hair flow sort of in a natural way. Okay? And click, click, and then see what it did? And then move around on this side and rotate here. And we could actually, bring it up a little bit more. I'm going to make a smaller brush now. Now that I got that first part done, I'm going to make the brush size a lot smaller, more like a 200 like we had it originally. And perhaps even zoom in a little bit more. So we can get some finer detail in here in some places. Because the idea here now is that we want to make sure that, that the hair is flowing, in the direction that it would as it comes from the part in the middle of his head. Okay? And you have to face the brush in the right direction, based on, sort of like, there we go. See how it's going to curve a little bit? That's kind of what we're after. We're going to get that curve going. I don't want to cover up some of the stuff that I've done already. But it's okay a little bit if I do a little bit of that. Just try to get that position just right. I'm going to make this hardness not 0 but like 50% now. And I think we'll get a little bit more. Yeah, that's going to look better. A little more, a little stronger. I'm going to go in the back here, work in the back. Zoom out a little bit. See how that's going to blend in. What I'm doing by turning this subtly around, I'm trying to look at the bottom edge of the hair on the back here. I'm trying to get those strands to sort of go in areas that seem like they're going in up and down a little bit. And double click there. Got that in there. All right. The only reason why I'm double clicking is just to give it a feel for, kind of make it a little bit stronger. I could just click once, but then it wouldn't be as strong. And so I'm going to keep going around like this from the back. And this is not going to be as obvious as it is right now when we do this, when we view this, because it's really just nothing more than just a reflective situation. Just a little bit here. Some of these curvy parts of the model are making it difficult for me here to get this to be looking kind of nice and straight here. There we go. That might look pretty good. And it kind of blends in well enough on its own. It's not going to look exactly right. But remember, there's also going to be a cap on his head too, which I'm giving you. It's also going to have a skateboard, which I'm giving you. See what a nice teacher I am? I'm going to have to go in and do some detail work in the front now. Alright, let's keep going around. Zoom out a little bit. Do this back side here. I mean this, not back side, but there we go. Okay, then I'm going to go and do this front over again because I covered up some of the detail that I would like to keep there. There we go. All right, now let's take a look at what this did. Okay, let's go to paint, and what we're going to do, just to put it in context a little bit, we're going to go ahead and unhide our character. So let's unhide by name, and let's get the characters should be called skateboard. I have it still called Box 01. I forgot to change the name. I tell you guys to do as I say, not as I do, right? I want to make sure I get my lights in there so I can see what's going on me, and that should be about it. Unhide. And so there's our character. All right, so let's go and take a look at how this is coming along so far. Now, way too high specularity. This doesn't have to look this way. Right now, the reason why is because the specularity setting in 3ds Max is too high. Easy to fix. So let's go in here and adjust that right now. So right now, the specular level is like at 100. So let's make it like 50. And also, there's no glossiness. The glossiness will make a huge difference also. So we're going to copy this hair specular.jpg texture as an instance to the glossiness here. Now, why an instance and not a copy? Well, if I make some changes to one, then it should change the other one, and that's what we're after. So we're going to change the glossiness to, well, let's just leave the glossiness alone for right now and just kind of see what that looks like without changing it. See what a difference that makes? Huge difference. So, but look at what it's doing. It's actually creating detail in our hair just because of that specularity and no other reason. Okay, so let's make some adjustments to this. Maybe bring this up to 75. And now that we have a glossiness in there, we can probably have the specularity a little higher. We get a little bit more detail. Let's maybe bring it back up to 100. Yeah, that's not looking too bad. It's giving us that feel that there's actually hair going on there. Okay, so we're doing pretty good here. We got our hair on our guy, and zoom out a little bit. We probably we may see him up close like that, and if we do, that's great. And let's go ahead and name him like I should have done in the first place. Instead of Box 01, skateboarder. There we go. Rotate him. Be helpful if I select him. There we go. Rotate him around a little bit. Zoom out so you can see the whole character. And I'm going to unhide the plane, or the which is the ground. Unhide by name. And we get, I believe it's plane 02. Yeah, there we go. And let's take a look at how he looks now. And there we have it. Yeah, not looking bad. He's got nice, shiny, clean hair. His mom must have washed his hair for him, huh? All right, so anyway, let's go ahead and get some things going here. In the next video, we're going to start working with rigging our character, because we got him all textured now. He looks pretty good. He's got a nice. The model is well made. The textures are looking pretty good on here. It's really made a difference. And we'll put a hat on him and skateboard and rig him, and then we're going to animate him. So there's going to be some videos for those. So we're done with the texturing for now.